Alright boys, Deus 2, version 2.00. We're going to talk about this large ID, this ground balance button on this machine. There's some people may not know this, okay? Even though I've talked about this before. Now I've got large ID selected. Iron tit is currently off, okay? We're in the fast program. Now I'm going to sweep this nickel. You see the large ID. Now, iron tit is off, so we don't get any ID and we hear the iron tone. Now, I have selected 5 tones in the fast program. I don't believe you can use the ground balance button in pitch tones. You can use it in 5 tones, 3 tones, 4 tones, and full tones. And I'm going to talk more about that toward the end of this video. Okay, so I'm going to match the ground balance button. Big ID selected. We get the big ID in the window. Okay, we get to hear the iron, but that iron don't sound right. And I'm going to talk about that later. But we do hear the iron, and we get an iron ID. Remember, iron tit is off. So I can be hunting in a site with iron tit off. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, now we're going to go to sensitive FT before I go any further. Okay, large ID is on. You see the large ID there, right? Okay, now we're sweeping the nail. We hear we don't get any ID. Iron tit off. We hear the iron tone. Match the ground balance button. You see the big ID on the nickel. What about the nail? No big ID and no ID on the nail. Unlike the fast program. Now check your other programs on this machine, because I believe what happens in the fast happens with most of the other programs. Okay? Now we're going to go back to fast program. Remember what I said, I've selected 5 tones. Alright? And what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, and what we're going to intentionally do, we're going to notch this machine to 9. That should get rid of most iron, okay? So I don't hear that nail. You notice that? Now the nickel still comes in. Now that's the ground balance button out. Now the ground balance button is in. There's the nickel. What does the nail do? Okay? So we get to hear the iron. Even if we notch iron and we come upon a target, when we mash that ground balance button, there's any iron there affecting the target, chances are we'll hear it. Plus, we can also hear lower conductive trash. Okay? Again, remember what I said my notch was 0 to 9. I got a lot of glare out here. I washed my screen on my detector. Okay, ground balance button out. No nail. We do get the nickel with large ID. Master ground balance button. We've got the nickel, and we've got the iron. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can get over here in the shade. I want to show you something here, what I'm going to do. Now, if you're going to use this machine and use the ground balance button, I don't believe the iron sounds right in pitch tones. Full tones, it does good. But what if you want to use 5 tones? Five tones. What you need to do is you need to burn a bend. Burn bend 2. Back it up to about 10. See what I did there? Scroll over and set that tone to the same tone as you've got the lowest tone. In this case, I'm dialing it to 202. Okay, that's where I've done. Now, see what I did there? So 10, 6.8 to 10, I've got it dialed to low tones. Now we're going back over here. Alright. Now we're still in the fast program. We're in 5 tones, so we get to hear that old nickel. We're going to mash the ground balance button. There's the nickel with large ID. Hear that nail now is giving low tone. Now, the iron is going to report louder, and iron volume doesn't seem to drive how loud that iron sounds when you mash the ground balance button, unlike with the ground balance button off. Okay, see iron volume there is 7. If I turn iron volume all the way to 0, now ground balance button is out. I'll take the notch out of the machine. Okay, so iron, no notch, iron is at 0. We don't hear the nail. Mash the ground balance button, we get to hear the nail. So this might make a quieter way for you to locate targets. Then you can inspect them with the ground balance button use. Okay? Now, I'm going to share this with you. You get to run your machine any way you choose. The full tones can expose lower conductive masking on a target. You get to run a lower than probably normal notch. Remember, when you're running a tight high notch, you could come over a masked high conductor and it could be reporting extremely short or be call position, call sweep speed sensitive. With a lower notch, that same target may give a more full-fledged signal or be less call position or call sweep specific to get you to stop. Then you get to inspect it with a ground balance button. Well, if you don't hear any iron tone and you don't hear any low tone coming in and the ID isn't dropping on the machine, chances are that's a standalone target, and the face value of that target in all likelihood is what you're seeing in the meter, meaning it's going to ID the same both ways on sweeps. Now, you may see a fluctuation in the ID with a ground balance button in, but that would be it hitting the low and high conductor. But the high conductor ID of the actual face value of the target, it may not come up in the meter, it may come up short. Okay, you could see a quarter, for example, reading like a zinc penny. But it's a quarter down there by some can slaw, just an example. Now, here's something you might consider trying, okay? This 5 tones that I've got set up in here, let me get back to it here. 5 tones. Okay, so what you could do, now remember, I burned my first 2 bins for iron tone, coming over the number 10. Okay? So let's say you wanted to run, I'm going to extend that high tone over. See what I've done? I'm going to leave it, we'll just call it 76. So what you can do is for all of your non-ferrous indicated under 76, you could assign it a low tone, but not as low as the iron tone, if you chose to, okay? So let's see if I can pull this off here. So there's the second bin. So I could go over here and I could dial this down. I could put it at like 496. All right, and the next bin, I could put it at 496. Okay. So this nickel now, that's how it sounds. Mash the ground balance button. There's the iron. Okay. So I'll get this piece of can slaw here. Here's a small piece of can slaw. Alright. So what does it sound like? No ground balance button in, ground balance button in. Hear it? So that may differentiate your high conductive tone. Remember now, when you're in the 5 tones over here, okay, you can go over here to your final bin and you can max it out. Okay? So you've got your highest tone, anything coming over your notch, the stuff you want to be stopped on. Alright, and then you can run your notch over that far as well. So you can run your notch over to 75. Just an example. Okay? So I'm over the notches at 75. And I got the highest tone out there. See it out there? So now in the wild, here's an old copper penny, all right? You hear that? And there's your, now that's the ground balance button out. Ground balance button now is in. There's your copper penny. There's your nickel. There's your foil. Okay? So now let's put that copper penny down there. Let's try to mask that penny somewhat. Let's see what happens here. Now the ground balance button is out. Alright, so we're getting high tone there. And notice what we got for an ID. 81. 78. How about that? And we can hit that with a pretty fast sweep speed. So now we're like, uh-oh, what is that? We mashed the ground balance button. Hear that low tone coming in there? Now, this still doesn't mean, now the ground balance button is out. And I'm going to remove this nickel here and put it over here out of the way. Alright? So now we're sweeping from over this direction. The ground balance button is out. So we're getting it there. But angle of approach, see, you could have double masking going on. So even rotating on that target, it could be mashed two different ways. And you get a low ID both ways. But when you hit this ground balance button, that low conductor down there, you hear that? Okay. So see, when people go into a site running notch, some people may go in there running an 87 notch on this machine, which is fine, you can do that. But if you really want to go in and put pressure on the site, you might go in there and run a notch of 75 or 77. And every time you get alert, you hit that ground balance button and you inspect it. And oh yeah, rotate on it. Is it a standalone target reading 75? Well, it probably ain't a sterling silver ring, is it? See, sterling silver, you got to watch sterling silver. It can read real near zinc and penny. That's standalone sterling, or slightly higher. Well, imagine if it's masked by Canslaw. Oh. So that sterling silver ring may reach 76, 77 under your call when you sweep it. And you're running a high notch, you don't even hear it. See what I mean? You may be running an 85 or 6 notch. Maybe you want to get rid of zinc and pennies. You want to dig the copper and you want to dig the silver, and yeah, you'll dig some silver rings. But in that case there, you would miss it altogether. Somebody like the sharpshooter could come in with a machine set up like that and lock on to a 77 reading target and inspect it. Say, okay, it sounds like it's standalone, and walk off and leave it. Oh no, there's masking. Now remember, iron tone also reports. So if you heard iron tone, low tone, or lower conductive low tone on a 77 or 80 reading target, the ID could be compromised. Okay? And it's a one push button operation once you get the machine set up. Now full tones, you don't have to monkey with that second tone being like I did with 5 tones. Matter of fact, since I'm standing here, let's just go back to sensitive FT. No ground balance button in. I'll dial in some knots right fast. We'll dial her over to 70, 76, 75. Now there's 76. I'll slow the machine down. There's speed 2. You hear that? So you hear that. You mash the ground balance button. Hear that? But see, that ain't as pronounced as how I've got this thing set up for 5-tones. You notice that? So you don't get to control the tone pitch. In full tones, the machine controls it for you. Unlike 5-tones. Here's 5-tones again in a fast program. Hear that? Now, if I remove that can slaw, you ain't going to hear that little low-tone garble coming in there. You hear that? That makes this machine a better cleanup machine inside that's been pounded, boys, okay? Now, you can use this with a 24 max frequency band as well, if you want to. Alright? But remember, you get to actually hunt in a site and not even have to hear the iron tone. And when you get over a signal that's breaking over your notch, then you hit the ground mouse button. If there's any iron there, if it's affecting the target, you should hear it. If there's any low conductive trash there affecting the ID, there's a good chance you will hear it. Okay? Well, that's going to conclude the video. I hope you enjoyed.